Good morning. Good morning. I think you all heard last night that there is something very different going on in the business world today. When you hear Tim Cook talk about businesses are groups of people, and people have values, so we have to have values. We have to act on those values. Another piece of evidence, if anyone in this room needed it, that there is something very different going on. You know, you go back a few years ago when Salesforce, PayPal, a bunch of other companies took strong action against the religious liberties law that was passed in Indiana. Or you look at what Bank of America did in North Carolina when the access to public bathrooms law was passed, Bank of America being the largest single employer in the state. Pretty amazing. Or Starbucks. A couple of guys get escorted out of a Starbucks store because they hadn't ordered anything, and the result is the company shuts down its stores for a half a day for bias sensitivity training. Ken Frazier of Merck, another great example. In the wake of Charlottesville, he felt the need to make a statement, not just a personal statement. This was something he checked with the board, and he said it was about the values of the company. This is not what we believe in as a company. And then just last week, as a setup for this conversation, you had another amazing event where the Business Roundtable and the Chamber of Commerce, pretty much the entire business community, was united in saying to the president, you've got to stop what's going on at the border. This is inhumane. This is wrong. Now, I can tell you, I've been covering these issues for more than 3 decades. I'm pretty confident in saying that not one of those things would have happened even 10 years ago. The general approach of CEOs was, if it doesn't directly affect my bottom line, and if it's a controversial social or political issue, by God, I don't want to get anywhere near it. I mean, I know this because at the time I was at CNBC running a television show and desperately trying to get people to come on and talk about these kinds of things. They wouldn't do it. So if it's not a direct effect on my bottom line, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So something very different is clearly going on in the world of business. Now, why is it happening? Well, you all can answer that question better than I can, but what I hear is, first of all, expectations of employees, particularly millennial employees, that are demanding a response from their leaders. They expect more. You know, when I was at the Pew Research Center, we did some research on millennials compared to previous generations at the same age. And one of the things you found was they don't have as many ties, formal ties, to society. They're less likely to be part of an organized religion. They're waiting later to get married. And in many ways, the employer becomes their principal social affiliation. And so I think that's one of the reasons why there's a higher level of expectations placed on all of you. Social media obviously has something to do with it. When you live in a world where some guy gets dragged off a plane in Chicago, and within 12 hours, it's the single most popular social media post in China, and people are canceling plane flights. That's an extraordinary degree of transparency that all of you have to live with on a regular basis, and puts a much higher degree of demand on what you say, how you spend your time. I think some of it has to do with the fact that our political system has broken down, is not addressing many of these problems that need to be addressed. And some of it has to do with you, that you have a new generation of leaders who feel differently about how to do these jobs and what your responsibilities are running large businesses. And that's really why we're here today, to help encourage and nurture a community among all of you who feel that you are in a different time, and leadership does demand different things of you, and you need to figure out how to address these issues in a sensible way. Now, we have 3 goals for the day ahead. The first one is to shine a spotlight on some of the best practices that are already going on at many of your companies. The second one is to encourage peer-to-peer interaction between all of you, so you can develop new ideas and new ways to address these issues. And the third is to identify any areas where there may be a case for collaboration or collective action. And the only way we're going to succeed at all three of those goals is if all of you participate, engage, ask questions, share your own experiences, and really jump in with both feet, because that's what will make this day worthwhile to all of you and worthwhile to us. I have a couple of housekeeping things I need to talk about. First of all, everything you hear from the stage today is on the record. I encourage you to tweet it out if you want to. Several people did during dinner last night. That's great. It's hashtag CEO Initiative. We're happy to tell the world about those conversations. But conversations that happen in the hallways, in the breakout groups, over the meals, will be treated as off the record, and they won't be used, shouldn't be shared publicly. They won't be used by any of the journalists in the group unless they specifically ask your permission. There is a CEO Initiative app that you can get both on Google and on Apple, so please download it if you'd like to. Also warning you that those of you who aren't subscribing to the CEO Daily, I hope there aren't any, but if there are a few people who still aren't getting the CEO Daily, you are going to be subscribed as a consequence of attending this meeting. You'll get an email and you either need to accept or reject it. Please don't reject it, accept it, because that's my little way of keeping in touch with you every morning, and I'd like to keep it going. Let's just see if I have any other. I think that covers the housekeeping pieces. So I was talking a few minutes ago about the changing nature of leadership, and one of the examples of that was in the aftermath of the Parkland shootings, when Delta Airlines announced that it was going to discontinue its discounts for NRA members. And it did this in spite of the fact that it's based in Atlanta, in a state where the vast majority of members of the legislature are members of the NRA, and it had a significant tax issue that was pending before the state. So a very interesting example of what we were just talking about. We're fortunate this morning to have the man who made that decision with us. So please let me welcome to the stage the CEO of Delta, Ed Bastian.